Local resolution, I think, is really key, and I think it's an area that we've been doing some work, and some of the regulators have been doing work on as well for a long time. But I think including it within our standards sends a very strong signal. I think this is really important. This is no longer a kind of nice to have, but actually it's really core and fundamental to some of the challenges we're seeing, such as fitness to practice factors and fairness. So that's one area that I think is really important.
Similarly, I think the good governance standard, I think, really sets out really clearly that we see good governance, good oversight, good leadership, and the impact of that being really essential to delivering and driving good regulation, improvement of standards, and all of those things. So whilst it is something that organizations that we oversee are already doing in many different ways, and we are assessing that in some form now anyway, I think having that formalized in a standard, I think, is a really significant change for us, but also a way that we can be looking to set good practice in that area as well going forward.
Yeah.
I think, just going on from what you had said previously, I really think that local resolution is a real opportunity. I think for organizations that we oversee, and in particular regulators, this is an area that I think can really unlock some creativity and innovation and questions about how can we do things differently, because we know in particular in the regulatory space, the these stuck fitness to practice backlogs, increasing concerns coming to regulators, not all of which are going to be something that the regulator will take forward, and the impact that that has on people who raise concerns. I think this is a real opportunity to be looking at what could be different in this space going forward, and how our standard can help to enable some of that.
Yeah, totally agree. I think it will give license, hopefully, to regulators as well to go even further, and for that to be reflected in our assessments. I also think another area might be actually potentially having a single set of standards between regulators and accredited registers might as well help to unlock and share learning and best practice and innovation. We know that for accredited registers, they don't have always the same legislative restrictions that regulators can. And in some cases, that's meant that they've had to develop new ways of doing things. Not all of that will be applicable for the regulators, but I think I think we've yet to explore. Who knows? Perhaps some of the answers might lie in areas of regulation which aren't as sort of constricted currently by legislation. And we know that the direction of regulatory reform for the regulators anyway is moving in the direction of more flexibility. So I think bringing the standards together in that way lays the foundation for collaboration, which always leads to innovation. One thing I think we might have to think about, however, is that we always know that to innovate, we need to allow a certain amount of failure. So perhaps that's something we're going to have to think about as well, kind of in some of these new areas. How can we set standards that are kind of proportionate and not kind of perceived as punitive? But I think that might be something we need to think about over time as well.
Definitely. I think our new standards really, I think it strengthens the system and the processes that we have in that kind of oversight. And so I think what it means for them is that they can have confidence in the oversight of regulators and accredited registers from the point of view of a professional, but also from a member of the public and patient. The other thing I think it means is, one of the things we try to strengthen through these standards is the accessibility and of the language of it, so making it a bit more clear and easy to digest for a member of the public, so that it's not just a document that relates to somebody who's steeped in the world of regulation, but actually it's more meaningful in terms of what it means. And so we've tried to articulate not just the standard itself and what that means, but actually, what does that look like in practice if it's being operated well?
I think that's really important, the look and feel of the standards, and the fact that we've got easy read versions as well to make sure they're accessible as possible. I also think in the standards themselves, hopefully professionals and the public can both groups can see how the standards are relevant to them and ultimately going to be helpful to them. And I think that we've come from a sort of past within regulation where we've moved to trying to make sure that obviously public protection remains paramount, and it does to these standards as well. But we understand probably much better now, perhaps than in previous times, the impact of the well-being of professionals on the standard of care that they can deliver, and how important that is as well. So I think that the focus of the new standards as well as sort of creating the right environments will be good for professionals and for members of the public.
I mean, the reason why I think we embarked upon this kind of review of the standards in the first place, I think, was a recognition that the world of health and care itself has moved on quite a lot over the past few years, and so has health and care regulation with it. And so I think we needed to consider a set of standards that were going to be fit for the future, aligned, together with the accredited registers, because previous to this, we had two separate sets of standards that were reviewed on a different kind of timeline as well. And so I think really need to respond to that. I think it's also really important for us as well as an organization. We are about to launch a new strategic plan from 2026 to 29. And so I think we wanted to make sure that the standards that we were using as a really key piece of how we do our work as an oversight body and doing our assessments of performance, that was fit for that strategic ambition as well, and that it was aligned to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think you say it's all coming together now for when we launch things. Also, moving into a period of reform as well for some of the regulators. So I think that's really good timing. I think as well, we're sort of at a moment in time where the role again of the accredited registers and the regulators is becoming more and more important. That actually, more and more roles are being developed that can't be regulated, because not everything can be regulated. So I think it's a really good moment in time for us to be able to introduce this single set of standards. I also think, though, sort of where we are now, we know that there's going to continue to be a lot of change in the external environment, and that's only increasing with technology and other things. So I think, yes, we've got a new set of standards, which is really good, but I think one of the great benefits is in the evidence frameworks that we've got as well. There's enough flexibility that we can, and we're just starting to think about this now in terms of, for example, technologies and AI, and what expectations should we set for the regulators, which is a nuanced one, because we want to be able to sort of support, again, coming back to innovation and growth, while also make sure that the core regulatory functions obviously remain as safe as they can be. So I think, now is a good time, but we need to sort of make sure that we're regularly reviewing them and introducing new requirements and direct. And I think the approach we've taken hopefully should sort of future-proof them to enable that as well.
Agree. And I also think it's important. We know now as well, in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of focus on regulation, the value that it brings, and understanding, getting that balance right between kind of regulate oversight and the importance of the public protection element of that, but also making sure that it's not overly burdensome. And so I think now is the time, I think, for us also to be thinking about our standards through that lens in terms of rights regulation, proportionate, how are we doing our role in that way, but also how are we setting the expectations for regulators to kind of be keeping up to date with those expectations as well.
Yeah,